Picture this. You have this young injured guy sitting on a biobed aboard a small patrol frigate.
Right.
His name is Seren, and his clothes are completely scorched. He's suffering from severe smoke inhalation, and he is just surrounded by Starfleet medical officers who are like desperately trying to save his life.
But he's fighting them.
Exactly. He is flat out refusing treatment. Instead, he's just clutching this sealed black and copper box against his chest, and he keeps repeating this single demand over and over.
Yeah, that he will only surrender this physical box to Vice Admiral Sidra MacLaren.
No one else.
Just her. Not the ship's captain who, literally just rescued him, and definitely not the medical chief trying to stabilize his vitals.
Right.
An admiral, the kid is bleeding, his body is failing, but he is guarding this object with this ferocity that basically suggests it's more vital to his survival than his own heartbeat.
It's intense. And, well, welcome to our latest deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a real-time political thriller pulled straight from our stack of sources.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is. We're looking at a scenario where the most dangerous weapon in a given sector of space isn't a photon torpedo or like a cloaking device or some massive armada of ships.
No, it's a 50-year-old bureaucratic loophole.
Yes. So our goal today is to explore how a historical record that everyone assumed was completely settled, just boxed up and forgotten, can suddenly, wake up and threaten the stability of an entire interstellar government.
Because the underlying theme here is really the weaponization of history.
Hmm.
We often view archives as these dusty, passive things, right?
Right, just boxes in a basement.
Exactly. But this scenario demonstrates that a meticulously curated archive is actually an active defense system for a regime in power. And a compromised archive, that's an existential threat.
Totally. So for you listening, I want you to imagine finding a typo in an ancient legal document. But it's not just any typo. It's a discrepancy that could literally overthrow a massive militarized government.
Just a terrifying thought.
Right. And then consider the lengths the people in power will go to in order to keep that discrepancy buried forever.
They will do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. So to understand why this kid is bleeding on a Starfleet biobed, we have to look at the mechanics of the ambush that actually put him there.
Yeah, let's start there.
So the whole incident kicks off with the distress call from a civilian courier ship called the Mourning Dove.
Right, and the Mourning Dove is intercepted by Commander Neris Joven of the USS Ironwood.
Okay.
When the Ironwood drops out of warp, they find the courier just severely damaged. And the analysis of this attack, which is provided later by Captain Rucker of the heavy cruiser USS Celestis, that's where we get our first real indication that this wasn't some random act of violence.
No, not at all.
Rucker reviews the sensor logs and immediately isolates this chilling detail. The masked ship that attacked the courier displayed none of the, the erratic, opportunistic behavior of a pirate vessel.
Because a pirate attack is fundamentally an economic transaction. They want cargo, they want a quick score, and they basically rely on overwhelming force to intimidate their targets into surrendering the goods as quickly as possible.
Right, they want to get in and get out. But here, their weapons fire was entirely surgical.
Wow.
The sensor telemetry shows they systematically took out the courier's engines and communication arrays, but they deliberately left life support fully functional.
Which is very specific.
Highly specific. And they didn't attempt to board under heavy fire, which is standard procedure if speed is your primary objective.
Right.
Instead, they were isolating the ship. They executed a classic capture pattern designed to keep a specific individual alive while terrifying them into submission before any authorities could arrive.
But the authorities did arrive.
They did.
The Ironwood intervenes, and this highly capable, heavily armed, masked attacker simply flees.
Just cuts and runs.
They don't try to finish the job. They don't even test the Ironwood shields. They just completely disengage.
Yeah.
And later, while the Celestis is escorting the Ironwood back to base, Rucker notices a sensor ghost shadowing them at extreme range.
He's just sitting out there in the dark watching.
Yeah, just watching them. It paints a picture of a very professional operation. It reminds me of the behavioral difference between a street mugger and a professional hitman.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. Like a mugger might panic and start shooting wildly when a cop turns the corner because they operate on adrenaline.
Yeah, they're scared.
Exactly. But a professional sees the badge, calmly lowers the weapon, and just melts away into the crowd. They absolutely refuse to fight a battle they haven't mathematically planned for.
And the discipline required to abandon a high-value target when victory is literally within reach is staggering.
Yeah.
Engaging a Starfleet vessel completely changes the geopolitical math of the situation.
It's a whole new ballgame.
Right. It instantly upgrades a covert recovery operation into a massive interstellar diplomatic incident. You're potentially triggering a war. By retreating, they prioritize long-term strategy over a short-term tactical victory. They didn't need to capture Seren at that exact second anymore.
Oh, because they could just watch.
Exactly. They just needed to track the trajectory of his rescue to see exactly where Starfleet was taking him. Because knowing the destination tells them which political levers they need to pull next.
Right. If they know where he's going, they know who they have to manipulate.
Precisely.
Which brings the focus of our sources to the actual destination, Starbase 369. And the woman Seren is desperately demanding to see Vice Admiral Sidra MacLaren.
Yes, MacLaren.
So while these ships are burning through space, MacLaren is sitting in her office on the Starbase. She is already receiving these highly polite yet incredibly suspicious diplomatic inquiries from the Tareth Regional Protectorate.
Just casually asking about the survivor.
Right, like, hey, did you guys pick anyone up out there? But she ignores the political noise and leans into her primary skill set, which is dissecting history.
And her methodology is really a masterclass in archival detective work.
It really is.
She operates on the premise that when monumental historical shifts occur, like the collapse of a planetary government, the decisive choices are made long before the actual crisis point.
Okay.
She isn't looking for a massive fabricated lie dropped into the middle of the record. She looks for the trimmed away uncertainty.
The trimmed away uncertainty.
Yeah, she hunts for the quiet moments where an incomplete assessment morphed into official policy simply because no one had the authority or the foresight to challenge it.
Okay, so she starts focusing her investigation on the fall of a planet called Tareth-Kal.
Right.
And according to the standard historical text, this is a totally solved crisis.
Completely closed case.
You have a failed planetary government. The Federation steps in to mediate the chaos. They draft a clean settlement. The Tareth Regional Protectorate takes over, and everyone goes home.
Right.
But MacLaren begins comparing the rough drafts of that supposedly clean settlement.
And the inconsistencies she uncovers within the demographic data are just staggering.
Let's look at the numbers, because this is where the sheer scale of the manipulation becomes apparent.
Oh yeah, it's wild.
So she pulls the evacuation records. A Starfleet emergency assessment, drafted in the heat of the crisis, planned for 3.9 million displaced refugees.
Right.
But then a few weeks later, a Federation relief assessment adjusted that number up to 4.8 million.
Which is a jump of nearly 1 million people, which is massive.
Right.
But, within the context of a chaotic planetary collapse where infrastructure is failing and communication lines are severed, upward revisions are entirely common as more isolated populations are discovered.
That makes perfect sense. But the final official diplomatic summary of the event, a document that was ratified and entered into the permanent historical record, it lists the number of displaced people at 3.4 million.
Right. 1.5 million people were erased from the official historical record with a single keystroke.
Wait, 1.5 million?
Erased, just gone.
You don't just misplace 1.5 million people.
No, you do not.
That is the population of a major metropolitan city.
Exactly.
So MacLaren asks the obvious question. How does an empire legally justify erasing 1 million people on paper?
Well, the final diplomatic summary cited a very specific source to justify that downward revision. It cited a Protectorate Civil Registry assessment.
Okay, so she goes looking for that assessment.
Right, and when MacLaren instructs her aide to pull that specific civil registry assessment from the Federation archive, they discover it is entirely missing.
Just gone.
It hasn't been misfiled, it has been systematically scrubbed.
Wow.
And this is a crucial mechanism of demographic manipulation. If you want to alter population numbers, you don't fight over the final tally. You delete the foundational civil registry.
Right, you take out the root.
Because doing so forces all subsequent aid reports and census data to rely on secondary, easily manipulated metrics. Without the foundational document, you can claim the earlier numbers were simply double-counted or the result of panic.
I mean, it's like doing a forensic audit on a massive, corrupt corporation.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
If you want to prove they are cooking the books, you don't waste time analyzing the final glossy tax return they hand over to the government.
No, that thing is pristine.
That document is designed to look perfect.
Yeah.
You go digging through the trash for the crumpled receipts, you hunt for the emails they tried to delete,
Exactly.
And the missing registry isn't the only red flag here. MacLaren tracks the wording of the actual dissolution articles, the treaty that ended the original government, from draft to draft.
Right.
She discovers that draft 5 is completely sealed.
Federation diplomatic security sealed it for reasons of ongoing regional stability.
Quote unquote.
Right. And that seal has been quietly renewed 3 separate times over the last 50 years.
Wow.
The current authorities in the Tareth Regional Protectorate have expended significant political capital to ensure no one ever sees the negotiations contained in that specific draft.
But, a skeptical listener might ask if it's possible. This is all just incredibly sloppy record keeping. Like planetary governments collapsing breed chaos. Evacuations are messy. Couldn't the paperwork just be a disaster of clerical errors?
Chaos certainly breeds errors, yes. But MacLaren isn't analyzing this data in a vacuum.
Right.
She has the context of the bleeding boy on the patrol ship. Commander Jovan actually transmitted the metadata from the black and copper box Seren is carrying.
Oh.
And that metadata reads, Tareth-Kal Custodial Continuance File.
Custodial continuance. That sounds like a very specific, deliberate legal designation.
It is a deeply entrenched legal mechanism. In many complex societies, a custodial line is a hereditary lineage specifically tasked with preserving archives, legal records, and basically unvarnished institutional memory during massive transitions of power.
Like a failsafe.
Exactly. They act as a failsafe against political tampering by an incoming regime. So the inconsistencies in the archive, the missing 1.4 million people, the sealed drafts, the deleted registry, combined with the existence of this custodial file, it basically eliminates the possibility of clerical error.
It was intentional.
Yes. This was the deliberate, systematic trimming of uncertainty, so the remaining narrative could fit comfortably into a neat diplomatic briefing. It was absolute editorial control over the facts of a planetary collapse.
Uncovering a 50-year-old historical cover-up is fascinating, but it brings us to a massive question of causality.
Right.
Why is a highly advanced masked ship shooting lasers at a courier vessel today?
Good question.
What makes an ancient paperwork dispute an active lethal threat right now?
The lethal nature of the threat actually stems from a bombshell buried deep in the fine print of the final treaty.
Oh, of course.
Specifically, Appendix 12 of the final Tareth articles.
It's always the fine print that brings down empires.
Literally always.
Okay.
So earlier drafts of the treaty preserved a role for the custodial line, allowing them to act as independent auditors of the transition.
Okay.
But by the final draft, that line was conveniently declared extinct and their oversight role was reduced to historical trivia. However, Appendix 12 remained intact, and it stipulates that within 50 years of the treaty's ratification, a verified descendant of the custodial line can submit preserved evidence to legally challenge the factual basis of the government's dissolution.
Challenge the factual basis. That doesn't mean a magic button makes Seren the new ruler of the planet.
Right. No, not at all.
It doesn't instantly grant him a throne or political control.
Far from it. But it grants him something much more dangerous to an established regime.
Which is?
The legal right to force a neutral, historical, and legal review by both the Federation and the successor governments.
Oh, wow.
It gives him the power to force everyone to open the books, to demand an accounting of the missing 1.4 million people, to unseal Draft 5 and expose all those concessions made in the dark.
Wait, 50 years, that means they are right up against the deadline.
Yes.
This isn't an open-ended threat, it's a literal countdown.
Exactly.
The 50-year window provided by Appendix 12 expires in exactly 14 months. So if Seren doesn't deliver this physical box and trigger the review right now, the legal mechanism to challenge the government just vanishes forever.
And that temporal pressure explains the sheer desperation of the ambush.
Right.
But MacLaren finds one more piece of the puzzle that explains why Seren even exists at all. During the original ratification of the treaty 50 years ago, a faction of delegates actually filed a formal procedural objection.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They objected to the sufficiency and provenance of evidence used to declare the custodial line extinct.
So they didn't believe the proof that the family was wiped out.
No.
They suspected the evidence was fabricated to just remove the auditors from the equation.
Exactly. Their suspicion was strong enough to formalize, but the supporting documentation for their objection was quietly buried. The delegates who filed it eventually died or just retired.
So it was just forgotten.
The objection became a single orphaned sentence in the historical record, just a footnote. But someone knew that footnote was the truth. Someone knew the lineage survived. And now, 14 months before the legal clock runs out, the heir to that line is making a desperate run for Federation space.
I want you to consider the immense power of legitimacy here.
It's everything.
You have a successor government on Tareth-Kal that possesses weapons, fleets, massive economic infrastructure, and deeply entrenched institutional power.
Right.
Yet they are absolutely terrified of a single young man holding a black and copper box.
Because he can undo it all.
They are terrified because he holds the legal key to make the entire quadrant look again at how they acquired their power in the first place.
It perfectly illustrates the ultimate vulnerability of any established power structure, which is the threat of exposure.
Right.
A regime can survive military defeats, they can survive economic depressions, but if the foundational narrative of their government is proven to be a lie or, the result of illegal manipulation, their legitimacy evaporates.
From without legitimacy.
The fleets and the weapons eventually turn inward.
Wow. So we have spent a lot of time analyzing the historical theory and the archival data, but the timeline in our sources suddenly shifts back to the immediate physical reality.
Right back to the present.
The Celestis and the Iron would finally arrive at Starbase 369. The theoretical paper trail we've been dissecting is about to literally collide with the bleeding survivor on the biobed.
And the contrast the sources paint in this sequence is incredibly stark.
Yeah.
Admiral MacLaren has spent hours in her pristine office looking at abstract data, treaty clauses, population figures, glowing text on a wall screen.
Right, very clean.
But then she leaves that sterile environment and walks into the VIP medical wing, where the reality of those erased numbers is literally written in blood.
Man. Commander Joven is waiting in the medical wing to formally transfer custody of the archive to MacLaren.
Right.
And the physical reality of this object is so grounding in the source texts. Joven places it on a sterile medical table. It's a dark metal case.
No bells or whistles.
No external power source, no glowing lights, just some geometric etching. And it is incredibly heavy and dense.
Yeah.
All those abstract population figures and sealed diplomatic drafts are locked inside this very real, very cold physical object.
And the physical toll required to get that object to the table is devastating.
It really is.
Dr. Helvig briefs MacLaren on the medical reality of Seren's condition. And while he suffered acute smoke inhalation and plasma burns from the recent courier attack, Helvig reveals evidence of much older, untreated trauma.
The sources mention signs of systemic abuse and potential torture that predate the courier flight by weeks.
Weeks.
This implies he wasn't just randomly intercepted in space.
No, it implies a protracted, brutal hunt. If the injuries predate the flight, he was likely captured, interrogated, managed to escape somehow, and was then pursued across the sector.
Unbelievable.
He has been running a gauntlet of horrors for weeks, enduring starvation and violence solely to get this dense metal box to Starbase 369.
And Commander Joven actually notes that even when Seren was slipping in and out of consciousness on the rescue ship, he violently fought the medical staff every single time they tried to separate him from the archive.
He wouldn't let it go.
He only relinquished his grip when Joven promised, on his honor as a Starfleet officer, to personally take responsibility for it.
Wow.
That level of dedication, it transcends a simple political stunt.
Because you don't endure weeks of torture for a political maneuver.
Yeah.
You endure it for survival, not just your physical survival, but the survival of your people's historical truth. If he loses the box, the truth of what happened to those 1.4 million people dies with him.
Which brings us to the climax of the narrative provided in our sources. Dr. Helvig emerges and informs the Admiral that Seren is out of sedation.
Okay.
He's incredibly weak, but alert. His first question is to confirm the archive is safe.
Naturally.
His second is a demand to see Admiral MacLaren.
And MacLaren's response here speaks volumes about her understanding of the situation.
What does she do?
She doesn't send in an armed security team to secure the room. She doesn't send a diplomatic envoy to negotiate a handover.
Right.
She instructs her aide to wait outside. She picks up the heavy black and copper box herself, feeling the physical weight of that history, and she walks into the recovery ward completely alone.
Because she knows that all the brilliant archival detective work in the galaxy cannot answer the most crucial piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
She walks into that room to ask the only question that truly matters. Why her?
Yeah.
Out of everyone in the massive Federation bureaucracy, out of every seasoned diplomat and decorated fleet commander, Why did this boy endure weeks of torture,
Mm.
evade a targeted military ambush, and drag himself across the quadrant just to put this box specifically in her hands?
It is such a masterful place for the source material to leave us.
It really is.
The machinery of command has executed its function, the fleets have moved, the rescue was successful, the history has been painstakingly exhumated from the archives. And after all of that vast interstellar maneuvering, the fate of a planetary government comes down to two people sitting in a quiet medical room.
So let's pull all of this together.
Yeah.
We started by examining a very careful, surgically polite ambush in a patrol corridor, deducing the geopolitical restraint of a shadow vessel.
Right.
We moved into the archives, tracking the cascading demographic data of a planetary collapse, watching 1.4 million people get erased through the deletion of a single civil registry.
Which is still just wild to think about.
Crazy. Then we uncovered the custodial line and a ticking 14 months legal clock capable of upending an established regime.
Yep.
And it all culminates in a face-to-face meeting between a desperate, tortured heir and a Starfleet admiral holding the literal weight of history.
And, the prevailing wisdom is always that history is written by the victors.
We hear it all the time.
It is a phrase we accept almost without thinking. But this scenario proves that history isn't actually written by the victors. It is written by the editors.
The editors.
It is written by the people who have the authority to seal the drafts, the people who trim the population numbers,
Right.
the bureaucrats who decide which procedural objections are buried in an unread appendix and which narratives are published on the front page. The victors might win the initial war, but the editors dictate what the future believes about it.
The terrifying power of the red pen.
Absolutely.
We think of history as something static, trapped in amber. But this scenario asks us to look at the architecture of truth. If a 50-year-old sealed draft and a missing civil registry can threaten an interstellar government, consider the digital footprints we leave behind right now.
Oh, that's a whole other thing.
In our own era of endless data generation, cloud backups, and metadata tags, could a modern government ever successfully pull off a historical deletion on this scale? Or have we accidentally engineered a world where the rough drafts of our history can never actually be erased, practically guaranteeing they will eventually show up on our doorstep?
Wow.
Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.